Be confident, be bold, be authentic, but don't forget to take action. This is Ordinary to Badass, where our stories empower women to step into the spotlight of their own lives and pursue what they're truly passionate about. It's time to step into the arena and become more than just extraordinary. It's time to become a badass with your host, Marie Sonneman.
Welcome to Ordinary to Badass, episode number 41. In this episode, I talk with April Kaiserlian. We talk about how April went to college even though nobody believed she could. We also talked about embracing your awkward and how she adjusted to parenthood. For a while, she felt like she was on an island of her own. Friend, there is no single way or no one single way to parent. So I think it's important that you hear what she has to say, because you're not alone. I guarantee it. Now, before we get to the episode, I have a favor to ask you. I want to know what you're struggling with. What is your biggest struggle right now? I want you to get value from these episodes, and the best way that I can do that is by finding out what your biggest struggle is right now. So if you'd be so kind to jump on over to either my Instagram and shoot me a DM and let me know what your biggest struggle is, or email me at ordinarytobadass or ordinarytobadass@gmail.com. In the subject line, put struggle, and then let me know what your biggest struggle is. I would really appreciate it, friend. Now, let's get to the episode. Welcome to Ordinary to Badass. Whether you're ordinary or badass, I'm glad you're here. We are all striving to be confident, bold, and authentic so we can live a life that we are passionate about. Today's guest is April Kaiserlian. April, thank you so much for being here. Excited to have you on the show.
I am excited to be here.
So first off, before we go any further, I have got to ask you, do you consider yourself to be ordinary or badass?
Badass.
Awesome. I love it. Tell me about that.
Why I consider myself a badass?
Yeah.
Because I have trained myself to not be as afraid of being afraid. So I take risks on a regular basis. Not always big external risks that other people would notice, but those can be internal risks as well. That's why I'm a badass.
There we go. So can you share with us something that you do to get over your fear or something that you tell yourself?
I think the thing that I have learned to do over many years, but it's really crystallized in the past few years, is I am willing to be wrong. I don't like it, doesn't feel good.
Right.
But I had a very profound experience that helped me understand that one of the things that was holding me back in many different arenas in my life was that one thing. I was afraid to be wrong. I might say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing. And once I had this epiphany, I was sitting in my own group therapy, and we were having a discussion about confronting another person. I wanted to confront someone. It was about a relationship issue. And we all traded stories about how we all had experiences of that, but held back because, maybe we'd be wrong.
Right.
Maybe we'd confront the person and we'd be wrong. And I remember sitting there, Marie, and all of a sudden I was like, wait a second. The only reason you or I are not going to say anything is because we might be wrong. Like, that's it. So the worst thing I'm risking here is I might have to eat humble pie and be like, I'm wrong. And suddenly in that moment, it was like after 45 years of living, I was like, I'm willing to take that risk. Okay.
Nice.
And it really crystallized a lot of things for me in that moment. It helped a ton.
So did that change things for you then going forward?
Absolutely. I think I'd always faced my fear, but I hadn't been able to articulate what exactly it was that I was afraid of. And something in that moment brought together a lot of my past experiences when I'd maybe be hesitant or scared or worried. It made it so simple for me, and I could understand suddenly better. But I'd been willing to take risks before that.
Yeah. Isn't
So,
it funny how sometimes it can just take one tiny thing to like shift your perspective forever?
yes, absolutely. Also, I was very invested in confronting this person.
So that helps.
Yeah, but I didn't want to back down. It had a lot to do with my own integrity, that I was willing to risk being wrong so that I didn't regret taking the risk to say what I needed to say. And so there was like this almost, there was this pressure from both sides in my life, and it converged like in this kind of perfect way to just push me over that edge.
So you mentioned that you didn't want to back down. And I
Mhm.
know sometimes we have these like conflicting things within ourselves, like, should I do it? But then it's really going to bother me if I don't back down.
Mhm.
I'm assuming that you said that you did end up saying something to her. And then how did that make you feel inside? And did that make you stronger?
I was confronting a male friend of mine, and did it make me stronger for doing it?
Yes.
Uh, yes. It's like the whole way I had a breakfast with this person, and the whole way there I listened to Eminem. Um,
I love that.
well, what song was it? It's a song about taking a stand. And I mean, I listened to it on repeat, probably the whole day before, and then like 10 times in the car ride there. And, I said what I felt like I wanted to say, needed to say, voice shaking. It wasn't easy. And I walked away knowing that I had been honest and clear. I also was very clear within myself, though, that I could not change the person I was confronting. All I could do was say what I needed to say, and this person was going to take it or leave it. And again, so there was that piece. I wasn't trying to control the other person. And then the second piece was I was willing to be wrong. I was willing to, 6 months from that conversation, perhaps get new information and realize I was wrong.
Right.
So yes, I felt it strengthened a muscle inside of me for sure.
Yeah. And I know for me personally, the more I've confronted those things and kind of spoke up and say what I really felt called to say, the more I kind of stepped into my own and became more secure with myself. I don't know if that was true at all for you.
Yeah, I think it's almost the funny thing of realizing I confronted this person and I didn't die. Like nothing happened.
Right.
Like it literally was like, oh, okay.
Yep.
On with my day. It was almost like anticlimactic, like, okay. Also, I'd been through a experience in my own life where I needed people in my community to speak up on my behalf. And because of cultural norms and other people's fears, they did not. And so when I needed people to be there for me, I don't say this in like even a condemning way, they were not. I knew the pain of that.
Mm-hmm.
And I was, because of my own personal experience, I was not willing to ever let that happen again to a person I cared about.
Right.
So it came out of also a deep well of my own pain.
Right. But you just as easily could have still shied away just because it's an uncomfortable situation.
Yes, absolutely.
So, April, can you go ahead and share with us a short bio? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
I make a living as a psychotherapist and as a mindfulness and self-compassion teacher. I sometimes say I make a living as a psychotherapist and a mindfulness teacher, and they make a loving by creating art. I do a lot of loving in both of those arenas, but it's a special kind of loving that comes through in my art and my writing. I've been teaching mindfulness and self-compassion for close to going on 11 years, 10, 11 years now. I co-founded the Grand Rapids Center for Mindfulness, and I've had a psychotherapy practice for the past 5 years. And then prior to all that work, I did a lot of nonprofit work. And then personally, I am the mother to 3 teenagers, an 18-year-old, 16-year-old, and 14-year-old, 2 boys and a girl.
So you stay busy.
I do, yes.
So can you explain what psychotherapy is?
Oh gosh, that's kind of a hard question, even though I do it every day. Okay, I was just thinking about this the other day. I was meeting with a client, and we had a really good session. And she's also a therapist in training. I'm not supervising her, but she often will ask me good questions. And it was kind of like, she asked me, what just happened there? What did you do there? And I told her that the kind of psychotherapy I do is I do a more experiential form of therapy. So I don't want you to just talk about what you're struggling with, or perhaps what you love or are proud of. I want you to experience it in your body, because that's how we make changes. We create new neural pathways through our direct experience. But what I said to her was, the kind of therapy I practice is what I would sometimes call nothing left out. So with my clients, I'm often listening for, I'm watching for the thing they're trying to leave out. It's like that thing they keep trying to tuck behind them, dismiss, like kind of push away. Sometimes I can hear that in words. Sometimes I can hear it in body language. It's like the thing over in the corner that like the person sitting across from me wants to talk about and address, but they actually don't even have language for it. So as a psychotherapist, I practice that, nothing left out. So.
I imagine that can be sometimes hard to draw it out of people, especially like if they don't have the words.
Yes, absolutely. And so it requires patience on my part. I might even sometimes name what I can see, and I might think that I am spot on, and the person isn't able to receive that or see it themselves, and that's okay. I'm not going to cram it down somebody's throat. That's not helpful in any way. And so it's a patient process.
Right.
I need to be patient.
So what would be somebody good to see, like a psychotherapist, out of like the different type of therapies? Why would be the reason to go to a psychotherapist?
That's a good question. Why go to a psychotherapist? So I'm an experiential psychotherapist, and many people find their way to me because they found that talk therapy has taken them to a point of understanding the why of what's happening in their life. Talk therapy has helped them connect the dots, and yet they still feel stuck. Like the pattern is still present, the pattern that they struggle with, or the relationship pattern. And so people come to me because I will help them drop into their physical experience of the moment. Often by the time something reaches our cognitive understanding, it's like, oh, I'm stressed. There has been a lot of information from the body already happening. The body's had these nudges, these twitches, these tensions, tightness that most of us in our Western culture have been trained to completely ignore. And so I essentially train my own clients to learn to pay attention to their bodies, because they can notice the pattern sooner, earlier, and decide, do I want to step into this pattern, or do I want to try something new? And again, the trying something new, we need to do that experientially.
So what's something that we can do to be more mindful of our bodies and what they're telling us?
Okay, so if I could give all of my clients their own individual book I'll start with one thing, the sounds that they make. So I love decoding sighs. Right? And each person I meet with has their own distinctive way of sighing often, or some kind of sound. And what I love about sounds is they happen in the throat. So they're right between the body and the thinking mind. So
Mm-hmm.
sounds are this wonderful bridge that often indicate you're feeling something. Something's going on with you. We don't always notice, again, the tension or tightness or that gut feeling in the body, but people can often begin to tune into like, oh, I just went.
Right.
And so one actionable step I would say is begin to pay attention to the sounds you make. And each time you make a sound, get in the habit of going, something's going on with me, and get curious there. The other thing I would say, this is a practice I've started doing because I'm creating a course on emotions. And one of the primary practices I'll use in there is actually a progressive muscle relaxation practice, but it's not about relaxing the muscles. It's actually training yourself to notice what it feels like when your body is tense and when it's relaxed, and anything in between, as a means of helping a person pay better attention to their body throughout their daily life. Because emotions, our struggles, our joys, they show up as tension or ease in the body. And I think a formal practice to begin to actually pay attention to that on purpose can be really helpful. So those are two things I would say.
That's really good. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about your wins. Can you share with us something that you're most proud of accomplishing?
I had a hard time with this question. I feel like there are these really obvious things in my life. Like I built my own private practice. I started the Grand Rapids Center for Mindfulness. I'm a mother to 3 teenagers. I survived an unexpected divorce. But the one that I reflected on as I was preparing for this, Marie, was just the fact that I went to college. I remember, I went to college in the face of actually having one of my high school teachers laugh at me when I said I was going to go to college. Like literally kind of was like, you? I can't blame him. It was my geography teacher. I didn't have a clue what I was doing. I didn't consider myself intelligent. And yet something inside of me was like, I'm going against kind of all odds. Really nobody in my family. There's not a culture of going off to college in my family. And when I registered, signed up, was there, I remember meeting with a guidance counselor my freshman year and asking, what's a bachelor's, what's an associate's, what's a master's, like what comes first? Like that's how clueless I was. And I marvel at that young woman who did that, because it really set me on a path that has supported me ever since. So again, there are these kind of big obvious things that I think others might point out, but for me it was to begin to cultivate my own intelligence, because I didn't think I had any.
Yeah. So can you take us back to that moment in high school where the teacher was like, you? Like, how did you feel and how did you react to that? Were you like, did you believe it, or were you like, forget you, challenge accepted? How are you feeling?
I don't remember. I can kind of conjure up that moment in my head, and I feel like I kind of agreed with him. Like everything in me was like, yeah, I get it. I don't know why I'm going either. My best friend at the time was going, and I was like, I'll be your roommate. I mean, it wasn't more well thought out than that. And I was not a good student. And so I think, again, it was like almost a mysterious deeper pull. It didn't make sense that I would go off to school. I just knew I was going to do it. And in fact, another point with that, I remember talking to my mom about going to college. I have an older brother and younger sister, and I was the first one to go. And my mom did not say this in any critical or way or meaning to be discouraging, but she was like, why are you going to go to college? I mean, you'll just end up staying home and having kids. And that was her reality. She had a GED, and like that was about as far as she was going to go. So again, it wasn't critical. It's just she was even mystified. Like, why would you do this thing? So I didn't really have anybody around me who was like cheering me on. It was just this deeper pull of almost like, I got to do this. I got to get out of here. I got to try something. But I agreed with my high school teacher. He was right.
Do you remember when that changed for you, when you did like start to feel the pull that you were going to go to college?
Uh,
And
well,
if not, that's fine.
yeah, it was more just, again, my best friend was going, and I have a tendency, this is my strength and weakness for me. I can be very much like a chameleon. So I'm just like, oh, I'll do what you're doing. And that's gotten me into trouble at times, but it served me well in that moment. And I remember when I got my first set of A's, it was my junior year in college. And the professors at that time, this was a bit archaic, but they would put, how many A's, B's, C's, or D's were earned. And, after the A, they'd put like there was 1 A on this project, or after the B, there was maybe 2 or 3. And I remember my junior year in college, like the program I was in, the social work program, like each time the professors would do this, there'd be an A and then a dash, like one person got an A. My classmates started to be like, well, we know who got that. It was April. And I was always like, what the heck is going on here? Because I'm like a C student. And yet I was starting to learn how to learn. And it took a few years of college, but I think I always had a desire to learn. I just didn't know how. And that might have even been the driving force. But I'm really proud of that moment when I think of it.
What is something that most people don't know about what it took to accomplish that?
I think most people wouldn't know that I did not think of myself as intelligent for most of my life, because most people now know me as a complete bookworm, a voracious reader, that I'm articulate, but most people wouldn't know that still like hiding inside of me is that young girl who's like, I can't keep up. Like, I am not smart. I'm not intelligent. Like, there is still a part of me that wants to shake her head and say, no, you don't understand. Like, right. You're smart, but I'm not. And I think that's the piece most people don't understand.
Yeah, because you only see it how it is right now. Like, you haven't seen somebody's struggle for their whole life. And sometimes it's even hard to get rid of those things that you practice for so long, or what you believed since childhood,
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So let's pivot and talk a little bit about your struggles. Tell us about a time when you gave up, but now you wish you wouldn't have.
Is it okay if that's on more of a personal level? I have I have a personal example, and then I have a professional example.
You pick. Yeah.
Okay. The personal example would be that there was a long stretch in my marriage. I was married almost 24 years. And while we had gone to marriage counseling really early on in our marriage, I kept thinking like, I think we should go, but I passed it off to my now ex-husband. Like, I mean, if you think we should go, then sign us up. And I don't live with, I'm comfortable with regret. So there's not many things that I look back and I'm like, oh, I regret that. And it pains me deeply.
Mm-hmm.
But that does, Marie. I wish that I would have listened to myself. I wanted to go to marriage counseling, but it's like I was waiting on him, almost on his approval, on his step. That's not his fault. That's his prerogative as a person to not take those steps. But I was giving away a significant chunk of my own choice, versus when I look back, I just want to scoop that April up and be like, oh, sweetie, you want to go. So go ahead and make that call. That's what I'd say to her even right now. Make that call, hon. And not because I presume even now that it would have saved my marriage. It's more that I wish I would have listened to myself.
That's so powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Do you use that now, listening to yourself more?
Yes. I often describe it as staying close to myself. I can usually, my body reacts in a very tense way when I'm getting further away from myself. There's a very strong physical reaction. So yes, I listen to those nudges in my body now.
Yeah. And I love how you say you listen to your body or to the nudges and stuff. I I find it so hard to do that. But when I do actually listen, like, yeah, it's telling me something, but just something you have to be more cognizant of.
Yes. Yeah, you have to slow down to the speed of your body. The mind moves or can move very fast. The body is slower. It's often quieter. It takes a little more time. I've found I have to be patient. It often starts with me with a sentence like, huh. And your viewers or your listeners can't see it. I just put my hand on my heart almost intuitively, like, huh, something's happening with me. Something's going on here. And that sometimes takes days, weeks, months to figure out. And the thinking mind is very impatient with that. So it's often this process of, let me slow back down to my body. Nope, something's still here. Something's going on.
And I would imagine even just the practice of noticing it is huge, like as opposed to just going on oblivious. At least if you're noticing it, you can take the next step to figure out what's wrong.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
So can you share with us a story about one of the hardships you have faced to get to where you are now?
Yes. I've been through a lot of different struggles, but the hardship that has shaped me perhaps more than anything is motherhood itself.
Tell me about that.
So prior to becoming a mother, I often was gifted the nicest person award, like in my college dorm, in my high school. It wasn't an uncommon way for people to describe me. Oh, April, she's like one of the nicest people you'll ever meet. And indeed, I actually got certificates that said nicest person.
Proof.
Yeah, I have proof. And I always kind of had a sense that I would struggle with being a mother. I didn't feel naturally nurturing. And yet a mother I became. And sure enough, because as happens when you become a parent, I was exhausted, physically exhausted. I was learning something so new, taking care of a baby. So I was emotionally and mentally fried as well. And so any defenses that I had came crumbling down, and all of my anxiety came barreling out. And my anxiety looked like anger. And so I suddenly found myself, the way I described it, Marie, was I suddenly felt like I was living in two different houses. I could cry about it now because it was so painful. To go from this one house, which was, if you imagine, tacked over the doorway, nicest person lives here. And then suddenly, after becoming a mother, it's like I lived in another house where it would be like, angriest person lives here, tacked above the door. And I'm so thankful in that moment. And it was years of pain. Like I sometimes say, the first 7 years of motherhood were like World War III for me. I literally kicked and screamed my way through it. That's not a metaphor. Literally kicked and screamed. Because I don't think enough women talk about that. But my anger was not internal. It was very external and very painful to myself and to the people I love and love. And so, but the intuition or my insight in that moment was, it was not about getting rid of my anger. It was about learning. See, again, I could cry. It was about learning to live in one house where both this nice side of me had a place and the angry side of me had a place. Because I think it's so tempting as women to think I have to get rid of this anger. And I knew that wasn't the solution. I had to learn what my anger was trying to communicate to me, is also how to harness it. There's so much energy and movement in anger. And I wanted it to be my friend, but I didn't know how to live with it. So that started me on a profound journey that has really informed almost any struggle I've had since. And the other thing that motherhood did for me was that, maybe prior to that, other struggles I could kind of wiggle around or wiggle out of, but I had 3 little kids. And as much as we actually forget this as women or as mothers, you could leave. You could have, what we would say, abandoned the family. It is a choice. Most women don't make that choice. I certainly didn't view it as a choice. So I felt pinned to the wall. It's like I had to stay in place and I had to figure this out. And it's like I just literally, again, kind of had to writhe in pain for about 7 years. It was excruciating.
Yeah.
So
Do you think that part of that came, like when you were talking about like the nice house and the angry house, do you think part of that came from people's perception of you and trying to fit in with that perception, or where do you think that came from?
I mean, some of it, I mean, I think culturally as women or men, but I as a woman had the cultural pressure to fit in, to be nice, to smile, right, to not rock the boat,
to be a good mom.
Yeah, be a good mom. Although I again never did very well with that. I didn't fit the mold from the get-go. But I think I learned that, Marie, more from my family of origin. My mom had really big emotions. And so I think my reaction to that was to get quiet and observant and nice.
Right.
There wasn't room for me to have any other feelings. And my mom and I've talked about this.
Right.
She's a different person now. She's continued to grow and change. But when I was young, to be quiet, what looked like nice, it was more just the act of being quiet and observant. That's how I maintained my sanity, my safety. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think that's where I learned it.
So what would you say to the mom that feels like she's living in the angry house right now and doesn't really know how to handle it?
One, trust that your anger is there for a reason, whether it's pointing to pain from your history, from your past, or it's pointing to something in your current circumstances. And sometimes it's both at the same time. It was for me. My anger was speaking to boundaries I needed to set in the present moment. And it was speaking to the many, many, many boundaries I wasn't able to set growing up or throughout my life. And it all coalesced in that moment. So anger often is trying to get our attention about boundary violations. And that's where I would say if somebody is struggling with their anger, trust that it's there for a reason. And then the second thing I would say is find a mental health professional who can go there with you. That took me a few tries to find somebody who could really meet me in that place, because I had such a habit of seeming nice and articulate on the outside that my anger would stay rather tucked away or buried. And then the third thing I would say, and this is maybe just as important than the first two, is have an unshockable friend in your corner. I had that. I had that very early on in my mothering journey, partly because I was so vocal about the pain that I was in. I was able to attract other women to me that were also struggling, mm-hmm. Who weren't intimidated, but actually found it refreshing. Like, oh, she's being very real about all of this. I mean, I walked around with a chip on my shoulder about motherhood again for about 7 years. And so one of my dearest friends, she actually lives up the street from me now. We met during that time. And I sometimes say that she's my unshockable friend. And I've got a handful of women that are unshockable. So I could go to them with my stories of anger when I'd lost it on one of my kids. Or my husband. And it wasn't that they weren't going to challenge me, but they weren't going to reject me for what I was trying to work through. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, which is so important. And I think it's easy to tuck our emotions and how we're feeling away and not tell people. But sometimes if you don't tell people, other people aren't going to share with you.
Yes.
Like
yes.
They won't know that it's safe too.
Yeah. No, everybody knew it was safe with me. I couldn't shut my mouth, Marie. I was like, this mothering gig, like I love my kids, but I hate this gig. Like I was so vocal about it because I was in so much pain. I was like, this doesn't fit for me. And some of it was twofold. I knew I had things I needed to work on. My anger was speaking directly to pain in my own life. But also I was pissed about the setup. I was like, I'm broken, But this system is broken. This is stupid. Like every mother I knew was on medication. I have nothing against medication. I'm so glad we have it. I was really stubborn and didn't go on medication, and it probably would have been a more gentle choice for me. But I was so sad that all of these beautiful women around me, some of whom even loved motherhood, were struggling under the weight and the pressure of how we define that in middle-class white America primarily. I had no patience for it. And that's where I didn't fit the mold. I was like, like kind of like, hell no, I'm not going to bow down to this.
It's like, what do you wish would have been different about the system?
Well, I used to joke. I was in a parenting group with a group of very safe women, which I'm very thankful for. But I used to joke quite often, like, if I were to start a nonprofit right now, it would be called No Mother Left Alone. Because watching, again, the women around me struggle, and it wasn't because the men in their lives, their spouses or partners didn't love them or care. It's just the way we've set up the nuclear family. Almost all of the responsibility lands on one primary parent. Now, times are changing, continue to change, thank heavens. That can land on whichever partner now, right? It still often lands on female, the mother in the partnership. The point is more that it tends to land on one person, and one person cannot meet the needs of even one child, let alone 2 or 3 or 4. And so what I was watching when my kids were little was this attempt to do attachment parenting. And I'm all for attachment parenting, but I define it very differently. And I started to very early on. I had friends who lived in Nigeria at the time, and they raised their babies there. And my friend Megan shared this poignant story with me one time, because she learned how to put her babies on her back with a piece of cloth, and she'd carry them around that way. And one time she was describing how her daughter Amira was on her back and was crying and seemed inconsolable. And there were like 10 women around her were like, I'll take your baby. I'll back your baby. Like, that's attachment parenting. It's not one child attached to one adult. It's a child that can be attached to many healthy nervous systems. And in fact, Dan Siegel, he calls it allo parenting. I don't know why he uses that term, but some of modern neuroscience is showing that we need like 5 or 6 healthy nervous systems around a child for them to develop healthy attachments. But culturally, again, we put all that pressure on one person, and there was just something in me. I didn't have enough energy to give anyways, but I intuitively knew this is not all my problem. I actually need other people around. And I think one of my pivot points as a mother was, I remember I felt so bad about that. Like, what's wrong with me? You know, I'm just a nicer person when other people are around. Why can't I just parent my kids by myself? And probably after like the 30th time of hearing myself say, I'm just a nicer mom when other people are around, I realized, April, maybe you just need to have other people around. And then I was like, duh. And then I had my cousin move in with me.
Right.
And actually had a series of people live with me for a good, probably 8-year stretch of parenting. Because it was like, oh, I do better when I'm not alone at this gig. Because when I'm alone, it's one of the ways my anger would flare up. But again, I don't know that there was anything just wrong with me. It was the system. I needed other people. I needed other nervous systems. And so did my kids.
Right. And I think it's going to be different for everybody, but it's the listening to yourself and kind of what your gut or your intuition is telling you.
Absolutely. Yeah. And questioning the stories in your own head. So again, my story was, I'm supposed to be able to do this alone and master it. And I had to question that story because it was causing me a tremendous amount of pain.
But then it's funny too, because sometimes those stories are passed down to us.
Yes.
Sometimes we're just taking the same story that we were taught by our parents or that we thought we were taught, you know?
Yeah.
So if we don't take the time to question it, we'll just stay in the same position that we're in.
Absolutely. I checked in with my mother and my mother-in-law in one of these key points of struggle. And I was like, well, how'd you do this? Like, what do I do? And they both essentially shrugged their shoulders and they were like, I don't know, you just get through it. I was like, that's it. That was the story though. You just get through it.
Yeah. And that wasn't welcoming or soothing to you at all. You're like, what the heck?
Yeah, it's like, this is not working. I mean, I was really worried I was going to hurt one of my kids. It
Right.
was not working. So
Yeah. So I think, the lesson there, like we said, is just kind of to listen to what your gut is telling you, because nobody else can really tell you what's going to work for you.
yeah. And
Of course,
honor your
easier
limits.
said than done.
Yeah. Yeah. Honor your limits. I had my own set of limits. We each do. And those are to be taken seriously.
Yep.
So
Absolutely. So let's pivot and talk a little bit about your mindset. Tell me about your mindset and how it has led to your badassery.
I think a key point of a shift in my mindset, Marie, came when I decided to embrace awkward. And a close cousin to that was when I was willing to embrace being wrong. But willing to embrace being wrong came later. I think the first significant shift in my mindset, again, where it kind of coalesced for me, was when I made it my life motto to embrace awkward. And once I made that shift, and it came out of a very specific story, that has served me well ever since. Because again, I'm willing to try things. I'm willing to look silly, feel silly, say the wrong thing, say the awkward thing, try to do the awkward thing, not get it right, not have it work out. That all, I've come to accept that as all part of the process. And so I've never been a good perfectionist anyways. So some people are, like, props, like some people actually are. I'm not type A by nature. I'm not a perfectionist by nature. And so it's probably a bit more in my makeup to be a little messier anyways. But once I started to embrace that, it has almost never let me down. Like, embrace awkward here, April. And I'm willing to try a lot of things because of that. So
Yeah. Is that because, like, you felt like you were insecure initially about being awkward, or was there something you were aware of that you were awkward, and then once you were just like, okay, I'm awkward, but I'm just gonna deal with it? Is that right?
No,
Like, it just made you feel better, or?
I don't actually think I was a very awkward person. Again, I was probably through my early 20s even pretty quiet, more, just blend in, nicest person, right? You wouldn't have thought of me as an awkward person by any means. No, I've actually grown into becoming awkward, which is an odd way. Like, most people, it is like, oh, I'm going to start to accept my awkwardness.
Yeah.
No, awkward is a practice for me. I've gotten really good at being awkward. So that's the direction it went for me. And that came out of I was invited to do a lip sync competition as a fundraiser for a local nonprofit. But I had to prepare 3 songs, part of 3 songs, get up on stage and shake my ass in front of almost 500 people 3 times, all by myself. And I remember, again, the day where I was at I was at this space, I had my camera set up, and I was like, I've got to put some moves together here. I had my 3 songs picked out. And it was literally like I was standing on the edge of the Grand Canyon. So that's where I was, on this edge. And I was looking across to the other edge of the Grand Canyon. And I was like, I've got to get over there. How am I going to get from here to there? Like, what's going to bridge this gap? And I realized, oh, I have to do something I've never done before. Like, I don't have the skills to do this. It was the lip sync. I don't have the skills to dance in front of people. I've got to do something I've never done before, and it's going to be awkward. And then I realized, oh, the recipe here, the ingredient is, if I'm willing to embrace awkward, then I can get to the other side of the Grand Canyon here.
Right.
And sure enough, that's exactly what I went into this competition with. I made anybody who came that was supporting me, they all made signs that said embrace awkward, and it has never let me down since. I'm willing to be, so part of that would be, I'm willing to be uncomfortable. I'm willing to live with uncertainty. That's what comes with the gift of awkwardness.
Yeah, that's so good.
Mm-hmm.
So actually, that reminded me of a story that I heard you tell on your on your Instagram page with with Katie Couric. Can you tell us that story?
Yes. I suppose that was an awkward moment.
I thought it was so funny. I loved it.
Yeah. So this was back in, I think it was 98. I was in New Jersey with a group of college students, actually on a missions trip. And I'd always had this dream of being on the Today Show in that crowd yelling. And so again, I've probably always had like kind of this goofy side of me. I wouldn't call it awkward, but I was like, all right, if you guys are real college students, then you'll go into New York City with me tonight. We will stay up all night long and then we'll get on the Today Show tomorrow morning. And they were all like, yeah, cool, we'll do it. So we literally wandered around New York City all night long, got in line, front and center, Today Show. And it was when Al Roker, Ann Curry, Katie Couric, and Matt Lauer were kind of the team. And, we're waiting. And we've got our signs. Mine said, "Hi, Mom." My dad was offended because I didn't have a "Hi, Dad" sign. Kind of funny. But, and so we're waiting. And then the cameras do that thing where they pan across the crowd. And Marie, I just lost my shit. I mean, I went crazy, just screaming and jumping up and down, to the point where I didn't really notice that things had started to quiet down. And so Katie Couric was standing really close to me, and she finally turns to me and goes, "Shh," and she smiled. But I got called out on national TV. And so I have that on VHS somewhere.
Nice.
It's an awkward moment.
Yeah. And then you talked about the itty bitty shitty committee. Can you say how that relates?
Yes. So a student of mine gave me that phrase a long time ago, that we all have an itty bitty shitty committee in our heads. And so for me, I use the Katie Couric story to say, that you can turn toward that itty bitty shitty committee in your head and set a boundary. And sometimes our boundaries start on the inside. We think they start with other people, but often it's with that committee in our own head. And to turn to it kind of like a grumpy librarian and be like, "Shh," just like that.
Right.
And then I also like to say you can take that "shh" sound and turn it into something gentle, where you scoop your fear up and you hold it gently, and you offer that as a gentle sound of "shh, shh, shh." So you can use that sound two ways.
Yes. I love that story, but I also think that the "shh" is so good, because a lot of times that we think we have to listen to that voice in our head and what it's telling us, as opposed to saying nope and move on, or quieting it down and then just moving on. So I love that.
One of my favorite things as a psychotherapist is to teach my clients, or to teach my students, that they can actually have a dialogue. They can talk back to the voice in their head. We often do that right in session, and it's so fun.
Yeah.
To have a person turn and look at that voice, because it kind of tends to live over our shoulders or something, and be like, "You know what? Be quiet. You're being mean. Shush."
Yep.
So.
And I mean, I think if you sit there and you listen to that voice that's always saying the bad things, then it's so hard to push past it, because you have the good things and you have the bad things. But if you listen to all the bad things and think that they're true, then it just kind of pushes your confidence down.
Yes. And another very simple technique that we teach in the self-compassion course that I teach is you can also turn to that critical voice, that itty bitty shitty committee, and tell it thank you. It usually means well. So to even say something like, "Thank you. I know you're trying to protect me right now," or "I know you're trying to motivate me, but I'm going to do it in a different way." But sometimes just to say thank you to that voice in your head.
Or "Thank you, but I got this."
Yeah. Again, thank you. I'm going to do it a different way this time.
Right.
But sometimes if you try to fight against it too much, it gets louder. But sometimes that thank you is enough to be like, that voice in your head's like, "Oh, all right."
Yeah.
So
let's pivot and talk about badass advice. And this is going to be a little bit more rapid fire.
Okay.
So what was your turning point for accomplishing your goals and becoming a badass?
Being willing to embrace uncertainty, be uncomfortable.
And do you have a morning routine or evening routine that you could share with us?
Yes. My favorite thing to do in the morning is to get up and read until my eyeballs hurt. And then to practice a mindfulness practice, anywhere from 10 to 30 minutes, focusing on my breath. but I'm usually curled around my cup of coffee with a very cozy blanket wrapped around me. It's not like a stiff kind of formal meditation.
Nice. List one thing you have learned from a woman in your life.
Oh, I had a hard time answering this one. That it is important to, again, both accept and challenge one another. I've had incredible women in my life that have done that, both love me just as I am and also challenge me.
Can you share a habit or a practice that has contributed to your success?
So one would be that willingness to be wrong. My willingness to be wrong supports my capacity to also be right. I get closer to right in that. The other piece I would say, I practice on a regular basis perspective. And there's a beautiful quote, wisdom tells me I'm nothing. Love tells me I'm everything. Between these two, my life flows. And we are a culture that's very oriented toward love. Like, you are worthy, you get to have a voice, you get to have a say, you are loved. Like, bring us your magic, which I wholeheartedly subscribe to. Mm-hmm. And then there's also this place of wisdom, which says, and you're actually not all that either. Something like a pandemic sometimes puts us in that position where we're like, whoa, I didn't do anything to deserve this, and it could just all be taken from me.
Right.
That's a wisdom practice. And so with that, Marie, what I would say is, whichever way you lean toward wisdom or toward love, you want to apply them in a way that brings freedom. So sometimes when I'm getting too scared of accomplishing my goals, it's almost because I usually think I have to do it a certain way or project a certain image or be perfect, have it all together. I swing toward wisdom, which says, April, most people aren't even actually paying all that much attention. Like, sweetie, you could die tomorrow and it would all keep going. And it usually gives me some sense of freedom, Marie. I do that on a regular basis. I actually contemplate death as a practice. And it's like, oh, well, yeah, that could happen tomorrow. So I'll make this video. I'll write this post. I'll make this piece of art, because it's not as big of a deal as I think it is. That's wisdom. Right. So we engage that regularly with a lot of humor.
And it's not even really dark. It just is kind of motivational.
Yeah. Kind of like, what are you waiting for? And,
right. I love that.
Yeah.
So I know you said you read every morning till your eyeballs fall out. Can you recommend a book and share why?
Yes. One of my favorite books it's a long title. It's called There Is No Good Card for This, by the artist Emily McDowell. And she wrote it with a psychotherapist. I think her first name is Kelsey, but the title is There's No Good Card for This. And it's a book about grief, not necessarily just losing someone you love to death, but it could be, any kind of tragedy or difficulty that befalls us that's unexpected and alters our lives. Grief swoops in there. And when I was going through an extremely painful time, I had a hard time putting words to my own grief. And most people didn't approach me in a way that was helpful. And that book, when I found that book, helped me put words to my own process and created a lot of compassion for me, for myself. But I literally wanted every single person I knew at the time to read it. I would have bought like 50 of them and been like, no, really, you need to read this book, because you all suck at being with me as a grieving person. So it is such a good book.
Most people do.
Yes, and it is one of the most practical manuals. Emily McDowell is a beautiful artist. It's written in really big font with lots of pictures and images. It is an easy read and one of the most practical ways you could learn about your own grief or another person's.
I love that. Let's end with a tip to encourage women who are in the arena fighting for the life that they want, and then share how the audience can connect with you.
Okay. My tip would be this. You do not need to write a PhD explaining every decision you make in life. This is where I would go, shh. Make your choice, state your decision, and move toward it. A lot of the women I work with, myself included, we spend a lot of our energy on explaining and over explaining and trying to get other people to understand. And it's a sign sometimes of anxiety, of trying to control the other person. And so I've learned that most of the time when I need to set a boundary, or I want to state a need or a want or a goal, 1 to 2 sentences is enough. And it means I'm clear about it. So I would say, stop using so many words.
So good.
It'll help you stay closer to yourself.
Yes. And how can we connect with you?
You can find me on my website, aprilkaiserlian.com. And I'll spell my last name, April like the month, Kaiserlian. And you can find me on Facebook and Instagram under the same name.
And definitely follow her Instagram. She has great tips, but then incorporates humor in there. So I really love your Instagram. So
Great.
April, you're welcome. Thank you so much for being on the show. You have been a total badass, and I've enjoyed hearing your story.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
And with that, we'll end our show. To all the badass women out there staying in the arena, wherever you are, whatever you are doing, own it and get after it. Friend, thank you so much for listening to that episode of the podcast. But before you go, I've got to remind you, I would love to hear what your biggest struggle is. Please, please, please head on over to Instagram and DM me at Ordinary to Badass and tell me what your biggest struggle is. Or if you prefer email, shoot me an email and in the subject line, put struggle and then tell me what your biggest struggle is. I would love to hear from you so that I can make content that is helpful for you. So thank you so much, and I will chat with you next week. Unless I get your email or DM. Talk to you soon.
Now that you've listened to this episode of Ordinary to Badass, we want to hear from you. Go to our website, ordinarytobadass.com/podcast, and submit your own experience on how you took your life from ordinary to badass and get the chance to be on a future spotlight episode of the show. That's ordinarytobadass.com/podcast. While you're waiting for the next episode of the show, wipe off the sweat, dust off the dirt, and get back in the arena.